You have found the portal into the Laughing Stoic Buddha universe. LSB Podcast with Nick Bibeau.
You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think.
To acquire and arrive at is based on having never left. Yeah. I'm just chilled out because
Sarah Larsen, welcome to the Laughing Stoic Buddha Podcast.
Thank you. I had to throw a laugh in there, but
No, it's good. It's in the name, Laughing Stoic Buddha.
oh my God, I'm already taking this.
If you watch any of my episodes, I just laugh insanely. I go back and watch some of them, and like I have this vein in my forehead that pops out when I laugh really hard. Like most of like the Duncan podcast, even a lot of the Dakota Robinson podcast, I'm just sitting there just laughing, red face with a big old vein. So
Oh my
a
God.
laugh is a perfect way to start the podcast.
Okay. It was a nervous laugh because I laugh when I'm nervous, but it seemed fitting.
I do too. I always say like nervous laughs. I'll take it any way I can get it. Whether it's a nervous laugh, whether it's a belly laugh, however it comes. Laughs are one of the best gifts of life. So take it any way you can get it. So welcome, Sarah. This is something that I've been looking forward to for a while. You were one of the first writers that jumped out at me when it was Twitter when we first started, or when I first started a few months back. And I was like, something you and I have talked about. A lot of what's on Twitter is a little shallow, to put it nicely. It's a little surfacey. And the first time that I read some of your pieces, I was like, oh man, like this chick knows what's going on. There's a lot of depth to this. There's a lot of and everything that I've read since then, you continue to always surprise me and be very much on point. So
thank you.
Thank you. I'm very happy to have you here today. We have a lot of cool stuff to talk about, and just want to say welcome.
Thanks so much, Nick. Yeah, the feeling's mutual.
Right on.
I really enjoy your writing too, and I'm so excited and honored that you would think to invite me on this. Thank you.
Right on. Absolutely. I think I messaged you the other day, or no, we were commenting, and I meant this, and I've told this to other people. The only person I genuinely enjoy going back and forward with in the comment section is you. Like,
oh my God.
We do this thing where I've said it many times. You pull the best out of me. Like you'll have a little post, whether it's a long form or something short, and then just like in the moment, just my response to your post, I'll be like, oh, that was pretty good. You always hit me back with, that's a tweet. You gotta post that.
Well, I mean, you're doing it all year. Yeah, it's coming from you. I'm just we're good muses for each other. It must be because I feel the same way. Yeah, because your posts inspire me to reciprocate in the same level of depth of writing as well. So I think that's a good sign that we found, people we've found each other, and we found people who are on the same level, and that's rare. Like sometimes I scroll through Twitter and like we want to do the engagement piece, but half the time I'm like, I don't really know what to add here. I don't know what value I could add. I don't know how to crack a joke here. It's a bit forced. So half the time, like I scroll by, or like I just write something for the sake of it. I'm trying to move away from that now. But with you, I'm like, it's like I feel compelled to say something and to like speak your language back. So it's good. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It makes the grind that daily posting on Twitter can be a lot of fun, and that's something that's always a good side for me. If I'm having fun, if I'm like laughing and smiling while I'm posting, I'm like, okay, or commenting, I need to follow more of that for sure.
Totally.
So right on. I'm thinking let's start at the beginning of your writing journey. I not necessarily need to hear your life story unless the life story ties into the writing, but when did you first fall in love, or at least have some sort of inclination that you enjoyed writing?
Wow, that's a good question. I kind of fell backwards into it. Most good things happen in life. You don't really seek them out. They kind of find you, I guess. I went to film school, So I got like I got the typical arts degree, which I thought was pretty useless after graduating. Um, and I was just, going from internship to low paying job to production company, like, not really knowing where I fit into the grand scheme of things in this industry. I've always had a love for film and television and the arts, but I didn't really know how to carve out a spot for myself. And it was actually Sean, one of our friends in the cohort.
Yeah.
He dated one of my housemates at the
Mm.
time, in maybe first or second year, and they broke up after a few months. But funnily enough, he moved to my hometown of Toronto, and I I must have taken pity on him or something, because we started a friendship, even though I was like, I'm trying not to break the girl bro code, but
Yeah, yeah.
Sean's like, we started exchanging DVDs and stuff, like the Lost DVD set or whatever. And
Mhm.
we both like we had big dreams about being writers and like going to LA and landing management and an agent. And so we kind of spawned this friendship out of all odds. I never really expected that. But I went traveling to Spain for a year or so. And then when I came back, I was super depressed, not really knowing where my life was unfolding towards. And he told me he was joining a program for writing, like producing television production writing. And just on a whim, I'm like, I'm going to do it too, because like it'll be fun. We'll be together. We can like, you know, I knew someone, and it was kind of like he had this path and I had no path. So I'm like, I'm going to just hitch a ride with you. And then that turned out to be the most amazing decision of my life.
Mm.
I met one of the teachers there who really took me under his wing, and I used the entire semester to work on a pilot script, a sci-fi script. It was my first one. I got feedback from the class and from him, and he really was like helping me workshop it. And then, I developed such like a good friendship or relationship with him that he was kind enough to introduce me to his agent at the end of the year. And based on that one script and that one, like me showing up to class, like, having the respect to like actually, take his words seriously, take his advice. He returned the favor, and I landed my first agent. Um, and 6 months later, I sold that script,
Mm.
landed a few jobs after that, and the rest is history. But a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. I don't know if I should keep going, or like this is years ago. Like
Yeah.
obviously, I took time off to become a mother and like start my journey there.
So when did family and children come into the mix? That's so interesting. I didn't know that background. I didn't know how integral Sean was to the story too. That's so cool because I haven't talked to him on the phone yet. He's a little hard to get a hold of, but I've interacted with him so much on X.
Yeah.
And like he was, I think, the first guy in the cohort that was like, because he's super into Joseph Campbell, and I'm like, he does so much really in-depth stuff, and I
Yeah.
love Joseph. Like Joseph Campbell was one of the first guys that got me into the love of
Yeah.
storytelling and myth in the first place. So like, I think the first weekend I was like, dude, you gotta do a podcast with me. And he's like, okay, I'll think about it. I want to be in the right place. And I've probably asked him like 4 or 5 times since, and he
Oh
still
my God. You
hasn't
just
locked
gotta,
anything down.
no, you have to just grab him by the neck and pull. Like he's just a bit shy, I guess. But once you get him on the phone, you'll see he's he's different on, in person than on Twitter. Like he'll warm up faster.
Right on.
But yeah, he was we worked on a few different shows together as a partnership, and we actually took a trip to LA together to do a whole week of pitching. We had a few mishaps in that as well. We stayed in like, I don't know, some neighboring city. It was like barely straight out of Compton, like that level
Yeah.
of like crime and stuff. And we took a taxi from the airport, and the driver kind of turned around in his seat when he dropped us off. He's like, "Don't go out after dark." And we're like, "Where are we? This week is off to a bad start." So we kind of like huddled in our own rooms, and then we got ready for the pitch. We went to like Sci-Fi Channel and Fox and CTV. No, that's Canadian. Um, I'm getting them all mixed up, but we had a few big pitches, and then we landed uh, not a job, but like we found some producers who like maybe 6 months later they remembered us and they're like, oh, we met you, like we have this kind of role coming up, and they're like it's being produced, or the network's in LA, but like the writer's room is in Toronto, so like it was perfect for us. And that's that's how we kind of got our start. But
So
um
that was the big victory, was getting the writing job, and the writing room, as you said, was in Toronto, which was your home.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. No,
Nice.
it was all very like serendipitous. I wouldn't say like I kind of, you know, armed my way, like pushed my way through into this industry. It was kind of like the path unfolded for me as I walked it without really knowing my next step.
Yeah.
Is that's kind of
It
like
sort of pulled you in, like it kind of chose you a little bit more
yeah,
than you chose
yeah.
it. Yeah. Uh-huh.
But I mean, I've always loved storytelling and writing. It just didn't really, it never manifested to me in this way that I could write scripts. And after taking some time off, I had a few different corporate jobs and production company jobs. I got into editing. I was like editing on-air promos for a Teletoon, the Cartoon Network, for a couple years in English and French, and then working at some smaller production companies, like leading the post-production team. And then like I was kind of, treating screenwriting as a side project because it was, the jobs are so few and infrequent,
Mhm.
that it's hard to make a living, unless you're, top of your game. So after I had my kids, I found Money Twitter and I was like, wow, people are making money from writing in this format. I was like, if, I was struggling and kind of trying to find my way in the screenwriting world, which is so different, but it's like at the end of the day, it's just words on the page. And so I was like, if I
Mhm.
can pivot this into like a more short form medium, maybe I have a shot here, because I mean the love is there and the dedication to the craft is there. So, it's just been kind of head to the brimstone ever since.
Yeah. 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 Wow. So yeah, it does feel like a lot of creative pursuits. You hear people that go like old school creative journey, it is like you're just sort of falling along the way, right? And just trying to like stay on your feet and trying to, just get the next pitch, get the next job, sort of stay
Yeah.
afloat. And how many years are we talking? Like from
Oh my
the
God.
first trip out to LA to
So
finding money in Twitter this year?
I graduated from that program in 2012 and I sold my first script that same year. And then
Wow.
it's
A
been
decade.
a decade. So it's one
Yeah.
of like, I'm not like a success yet, but it's kind of like, you know, if I ever were to become extremely successful, it wouldn't be an overnight thing, because like I've been chipping away at this for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, and it's
In my job, you'd be called a journeyman, or
yeah,
a journeywoman. Like you've been
oh yeah,
around. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You put in the work. You served your apprenticeship and some. You've been in the field
yeah.
a while. Yeah.
Definitely know what it feels like to be the starving writer or the starving artist, because it's no joke. Like I mean, you have to make ends meet when, especially when you have a family. I know you know how that is, but
Mhm.
and as much as we'd like to pursue the creative arts, it's tough. You want to do where you know what where your heart calls you towards. You want to follow that call, but sometimes the world has different plans for you, and you have responsibilities, and you kind of have to put it to the side for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So that leads us all the way up. That was a nice storytelling, capping up the last year of Hollywood and writing and the industry. Leads us up to today, which is something I mentioned to you. I'd like to talk to you about Fearless Rising, your brand on X. And it's a very, as I mentioned, I enjoy your content a lot. And you have this very niche. I haven't found anyone else that really has all the elements and flavors that your brand and your message has. So, how would you encapsulate and tell us the story of what Fearless Rising is?
Well, thank you. Well, it's funny because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, no one's doing what I'm doing. That's either a really good thing or a really bad thing. Like the market's like, maybe people have tried it and they're like they don't want it, so like no one's playing in that area. But I'm like, this is what I like to do, what I like to write about, so I'm gonna keep going. Fearless Rising, it goes back to my dad, and his passing 3 years ago. Um, it was a time in my life where everything was kind of flipped upside down, and it caught me really off guard when he died. It was kind of an unexpected and traumatic experience. And it really had me reevaluating what was important to me, and just looking at the basis of my life and not really liking what was what I was looking at. I was like kind of sleepwalking through life up until that point. No awareness of, my own health and well-being, and the way I'm showing up for my kids in a conscious way. I wasn't exactly failing, but I wasn't really succeeding either. I was kind of
Hmm.
just middle of the road. Um, the people where they're just kind of
Getting
walking,
by. Yeah.
getting by. And
Sleepwalking through life, maybe.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
that shook me to my core. And I was like, I don't want to be that way anymore. Life is so fragile. It can get just snuffed out in one moment.
Yeah.
And I have so much more in me. Like I have so much more potential. I'm just like a shadow of myself right now. And it was in that moment where I was like, I need to do something about it. So I started reading like voraciously, and I think that was also like a trauma response in terms of my dad, because his diagnosis was like I hadn't taken it very seriously. I think he hid a lot from us about how serious it was, and the fact that I couldn't change his destiny, I couldn't save him. It really shook me out. I wish that things had gone differently. So I started reading all like everything you can imagine, like health and diet and spirituality and well-being, and like the homeschool, like the schooling system, and how I can be a better parent, and child psychology, like literally everything. My partner was thinking I was going crazy because I was like, all of a sudden the house is just full of books,
Uh,
and I'm like reading 10 at the same time. And I was like, and it was probably in my head, I was like, I've thought about this a lot, and it was probably to do with the fact that I didn't feel smart enough to make a difference before, and I never want to feel that caught off guard again. So
mm,
in my subconscious way, I'm trying to arm myself with knowledge and try to make myself a smarter, more aware, more balanced, and well-rounded human being, so that I can handle life differently when the next catastrophe happens. As we know, things are just unpredictable, and we never know what's around the corner. So my coping mechanism was just to read a whole damn lot. So that brought me to neuroscience. Funnily enough, I've always had chronic anxiety, and I realized that at the base of everything that was going wrong in my life, all the failures and mistakes and mishaps and lost opportunities, it was fear at the
mm,
bottom of it. And it got me obsessed with the idea of understanding fear and the mechanisms of the brain, and how fear is manifested, and the role of cortisol and like all the other neurotransmitters, and how we are hardwired, and what I can do to understand my brain better so that I can play myself better. And that's exactly what happened. Like I started reading about the mind, and I felt like I'd unlocked this cheat code for life. I was like,
mhm,
God, like this makes so much sense. I understand, like I can give myself more grace now. There's nothing wrong with me. Like my brain has evolved the way it has to protect me, you know.
yeah.
Um, and like with a few different practices, trying to understand neuroplasticity and like rewiring pathways, like I can actually read my way out of anxiety and fear. I can fix this. Like there's a better path for me. So it got me on this path of where I am now, understanding the mind through all these different um, perspectives and domains and disciplines like psychology and neuroscience, and then I went towards like childhood attachment theory, understanding like childhood wounds and trauma, and how that plays like a huge role in how fear manifests itself in adulthood. And
Yeah.
then the whole thing with mindfulness, and then Carl Jung and shadow work. I was like, I feel like I'm pulling all these different threads together. I'm getting like this holistic look at fear,
Yeah.
and I didn't see anyone else doing that. Um, and so I was like, this is helping me so much. I need to write about this and share it with other people. Um, and that's kind of where we are now.
Yeah.
So that's why I write about what I write about. I it's very self-generative for me in terms of like coming up with ideas and like knowing what I want, what I'm driven towards, because it's actually a practice. It's like a personal mission for me. Like
Yeah.
it's like a meta experience because I'm like actively in real time practicing or applying these things to my own life and trying to move through my own fears. And then I'm writing about it online, and I'm trying to pave the path for other people to do the same. So I'm coming from it, not from the guru sitting on top the mountain. I'm like literally in the trenches with everybody. Like this whole X Twitter account is like an exercise for me in and of itself to practice facing my own fears and conquering my own fears, because like for the longest time I was scared of using my voice. I was
Mm.
scared of publishing stuff online. Like I hate confrontation. I I've always been scared of being a beginner at things, so I like opportunities was passed me left and right. Um I was scared of like everything. Like fear has been the thing that has held me back for my entire life. It's shortchanged me out of my gifts, out of opportunities. Like for example, I I was playing Moonlight Sonata on piano at 7 years old. Like I'd memorized it and I was playing, and like that was alone in private and for my mom and dad. But if you put me in front of an audience at a recital in front of family, like I would fall apart. And so like
Mhm.
fear, it was like robbing me of the gifts and the places that they could take me. And once I realized that, I was like, I have to catch up. Like I have so much ground to that I need to cover, because I feel like I've spent 30 plus years just caving to all of this anxiety and fear, and that's no way to live. I was just so exhausted with my own patterns and my own habits that I was like, I need to make a change. And the last year or so, give or take a few months, has been really um, a catalyst for that.
And the last year or so has probably been pretty transformative too, based on your story.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. And I have a lot of like, I'm not saying I'm anywhere near perfect, but I'm definitely a hell of a lot more fearless, I could say, I guess you could say, than I was just a few years ago. Because yeah, I was just a shadow of myself before.
Yeah, well, I have so many thoughts. That was a beautiful um, recap of what brought you to this point. I mean, I got goosebumps for a moment. I feel I can relate so much, and I know so many other people can relate too, to feeling lost and
Mhm.
feeling out of control and not knowing the answer, not knowing the next step. And I feel like I just feel Joseph Campbell in the hero's journey throughout this whole thing, that you had to face the death of your father, and that we can be comfortable and we can avoid that which we're afraid of and stay in our comfort zone when life allows us to. But then when tragedy strikes, or especially, so much of what I talk about on this podcast all the time, and a lot of what you write about is mortality. When you
Mhm.
face mortality, you go, "Oh, we're not going to be here forever." Like
Yeah,
we all know intellectually, but we spend so much of our time and energy avoiding the fact that we're not going to be here forever. That
yeah,
life is finite, that it could disappear tomorrow, or it could disappear 60 years from now, but like we are temporary. We're going to die. And when you face that, all of a sudden you realize, well, shit, I can continue to let fear keep me from being the person I want to be, for showing up for the people that I love the way that I want to
mm,
doing with this life what it is that I really want to do. Or when it's in your face, when your mortality is in your face because of the loss of a loved one, because of your own near death experience, whatever, you go,
mhm,
oh shit, I got to figure this out. And what I heard in your story there was you got hit with, I got to figure this out.
yeah,
um, and you dove into reading and research and then doing your own work. And just a quick side note beyond your own little story, um, that comes through in your, like you said, in your writing. You're not a guru. You're not like, hey, it's funny, we talk about a lot on the cohort calls how everybody is You know, 3 months ago I had social anxiety and I was broke. Now I'm rich and I got hella friends, right? It's a very simplistic, boring, one-dimensional storyline. And your storyline is very multi-dimensional, where like you'll say it in your spaces, your fearless friends spaces of like, this is a meta practice. I hate public speaking. I'm terrified right now. But
Yeah,
I'm doing it and I'm preaching to you guys to face your fears. You want an example? I'm doing it right now. I'm facing
yeah,
my fear and talking to you guys. And like it has so much more depth to it, you know, so much more roots when it's like I'm not just preaching. I'm practicing what the hell I preach. I'm walking
yeah,
the walk. And it comes through in your content and in your message and all that. And it's just like I just can't help but I find so many parallels, you know. I'm sort of past it enough that I don't bring it up as much as I used to on the podcast. But when I was 27, 28 years old was my dark night of the soul. And
mm,
it really was like kind of all my 20s leading up to that. But that was like the low point. And the way that I sort of started turning it around, my Sarah's version of buying books and researching like crazy was I started meditating
mm.
and really diving into Buddhism first. I had a bunch of book recommendations come in while you were talking. I should have wrote them down.
Yeah.
Have you read Why Buddhism is True by Robert Wright?
No.
Okay, I think you'll love it because he's a neuroscientist and it's all
Okay.
about, yeah, and he's an atheist neuroscientist because the title turns people off. They're like, why Buddhism is true. That's like, you know, pretty bold statement. He's not a
Yeah.
Buddhist. He's a
Okay.
neuroscientist, atheist.
Okay.
Yeah, but he writes about how basically how neuroscience agrees so much with a lot of the philosophy of Buddhism. So
Okay. I'm gonna
came
make a
across
note.
that. Yeah, yeah, I'll send you the recommendation. And then the other one that came to my mind was The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker. Have you heard of that?
Oh, but
Oh my
I'm
God.
taking notes.
Okay, and then there's Worm at the Core, which was one of his students who wrote about him. These are both basically the idea that every drive in human nature is revolved around avoiding death, basically.
Mm.
And this is a philosopher and psychologist, like really breaks it down. I think he won the Nobel Prize for it.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I won't forget those because those are like a couple of my top 10 all-time favorite books. But yeah, so in my own journey, I hit a point and I used to not be able to say it without tearing up. I think I can now, where I was so down and out. I was in such a dark night of the soul that I was like, man, I just want to give up. But I had a family that was
Mm.
counting on me. And that's the only reason I couldn't. The only reason I couldn't fall into nihilism and despair and just give
Yeah.
up was because it wasn't just about me. I had kids, I had a family, I had other people counting on me. And the way I pulled myself out of it was study, meditation, doing the work, stoicism, and just going like, okay, there's something here. Like, I don't even know if it's going to save me, but I'm throwing all my energy and faith into this stuff, pulling me out. And it
Yeah.
did. Right. And we're
Was
many years down the line.
was this preceding the daily writing to your daughters
Oh
or
yeah. Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
this, there was 3 years, 2.5, 3 years of this before I started writing.
Yeah. Okay. You
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
groundwork or like yeah, you had set the groundwork before that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the daily writing has just accelerated
Yeah.
that whole deal and that whole process. So I really love your story. I resonate with this so much, and I see the depth behind the whole Fearless Rising, you know, mission and brand, you know, that you're working on because it really, I mean, talking about personal brand, this is as personal as it gets, you know. What is the number one thief for most of us? It's fear. Fear is what's
Yeah.
stealing us from living the best life possible, from reaching our
Yeah.
potential, right? From loving fully and opening up our
Totally.
hearts. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're dedicating your work to overcoming fear in your personal life, sharing what you find along the way, like damn, that's like can't really find a better mission than that.
Oh, thank you. I mean, yeah, like it's interesting. I was talking to Francesca the other night, and how just to what we were saying, like I'm speaking from personal experience and I'm projecting that out there. And I'm talking, it's like a meta experience for me because I'm going through this journey alongside everyone, all the readers at the same time. Oh, I mean, maybe they're at the same point, maybe they're a little ahead or behind me, but I was saying, like, I think at some point I would love to graduate to like a position of authority a little bit. Like I would, because it would be nice to, and then it would be, I'm just interested about how my page and how my brand will evolve over time, because at some point I'm hoping that like I will get my shit together and I will overcome some fears, like, you know, once and for all. Like I know we'll never be rid of it forever or like completely, daily life comes at you fast, but um it'll be, I'm sure there will be many iterations of Fearless Rising
Yeah.
um, in the next few years as I work through these things in my own head and in my own life. So I'm curious about how that will evolve.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing that came to my mind was I've heard a lot of people say Dan Coe says this, or Dakota has said it, that a personal brand is one of the best forms of self-improvement, right? Personal brand in business, because it forces you, there's no better accountability than knowing that you have fans that are like counting on you to do your thing. So like in your case, you're not doing this in isolation, right? You're doing this for yourself. Like the primary goal is to be a better person, have more courage, be a better mother, the whole deal.
Yeah.
But you also know always in the back of your head that there's fans sort of counting on you, right? So it's this great motivation. Yeah, I know, right? Fans say like I mean, it makes me think of David Goggins. I know you wrote a really good
Oh yeah.
post, did really
He's
well
my
on
guy.
David Goggins. So have you ever heard him talking with Rogan and him talking about like, you think I want to go for these runs every day? Like I fucking hate this shit.
Yeah.
It's like you wake up at 5 a.m. and sometimes I'll stare at those shoes for 30 minutes and I'm like, man, I really don't want to fucking go for a run.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got people counting on you, Goggins. All right, let's do this, right? And like
Yeah.
I've had obviously I have less fans, even less fans than you, but there's a few out there that like I have a few things in my personal brand of like I walk like crazy, right? 20,000
Yes.
steps a day, and I write every day, and like I really do. But it was such a different thing to write every morning when like nobody was watching, or to walk every day when nobody was checking in. Like I can't fake those step stuff on my phone. Like if I don't
Yeah.
walk it, like my numbers are gonna go down. And
Yeah.
it is in the mix, and it's the coolest form of accountability I've never felt. That it's like, hey,
Yes.
there's like I've had so many people be like, Nick, I started walking more, man. I went from 2,000 a day to 10,000 a day, and
Wow.
every time that I put a little post up about walking, or I have people DM me like, hey, you hell of inspired me. I'm gonna start waking up at 5 a.m. and writing first thing every single morning. And then
Wow.
I'm like a little accountability partner. I check in on them next week. How'd you do? Oh, I got 4 out of 7 days. Hey man, that's hella better than nothing.
Yeah.
Let's go for 7 out of 7 this week. And so yeah, the cool thing, it had always been something I saw from afar. It was theoretical. Now I'm experiencing it, of like it's important to set your brand around like positive things, right? And be honest when you fall short. Like that's another, in your case, like giving examples of when you let fear win, right? Or you wanted to be courageous but you fell short. And in
Yeah.
my case too, I wanted to write this morning and something came up, or whatever. I felt like that's
Yeah.
important too, and genuine, like being genuine and authentic the whole way through. But it is such a cool motivator when your brand is based around positive stuff and people are like sharing with you like, hey, I'm you're inspiring me. And it's like, well shit, if I want to keep inspiring you, I got to keep
Yeah.
handling business on my side.
That's so interesting you brought that up because I feel the same way. It's been such an enriching experience being on Twitter or X. Like it's like a microcosm of life in there. Like you have this community, and like we're on the side of Twitter that's full of high achievers and people who want to build things, people who want to improve their lives, and like you can't help but like rise with that tide. And
Yes.
my life has improved just by being around these people. And like I've never met any of them in real life. Like I've had conversations on the phone with you and with maybe a dozen other people, and I'm in the DMs with people and like commenting, but it I would go as far as to say like the people on X have had more of an impact on my life in the last 6 months than my in real life friends in the last few years. Like it's just a
Mhm.
different caliber of people. So I totally hear what you're saying. And like, yeah, keep staying accountable because there's people reading and watching. And even if you don't, if even if they don't like or they don't comment, like you never know who you're influencing. So that's a beautiful thing about that. And I wanted to say one more thing about the David Goggins thing. I read his book, um, Can't Hurt Me, and that was a big influence for me. And there's such a cool intersection of his philosophy and neuroscience that like I bridged because I was reading his book and I was reading Loretta Bruning. She's a very prolific writer in the neuroscience space and like really breaks it down so that people like a liberal arts degree can understand it, so it's not like just for PhDs. But she confirms that you know how David Goggins talks about doing hard things. Like if you
Mm.
do hard things, your floor will become no, your ceiling will become your floor. Like
Yes.
you will rise to the occasion. And she confirms that in her research. And I've talked about this online before. She uses the example of feral pigs, and she talks about how if pig like they've confirmed in studies that if a pig that is living on a farm escapes and goes back to the wild, and it has to make it on its own, and it has to meet its own survival needs, it will start changing biologically and physiologically. Like
Mm.
its snout will grow longer because it has to root for its own food, and its fur will get thicker when it has to use that fur to stay warm. So like there's something to be said about the 24/7 comfort that we live in
Yes.
daily in this life, and how like you going on walks or like people working out every day, like pushing themselves physically and mentally and emotionally, spiritually. Like there's something to be said about that. And even on a neuromolecular level, what she says, like the main message of that is that you can activate your potential by doing hard things. Like you can trigger the strength that you are meant to have by
Yes.
putting yourself in these hard situations. And that goes for like the predictable stuff and the unpredictable stuff. Like you hear about people going through like stuff like, your experience at, the barrel of the gun,
Yeah.
my experience with my dad, like the points in our lives where we were broken down so deep into the ground were the moments where we really discovered who we were,
Yeah.
and we really like alchemized that pain and that suffering into something beautiful, at least for me, and I know for you, like.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a shame that the victim mentality that a lot of people fall into. I could have easily swung that way as well after my dad passed away, but I don't know, something inside of me pushed me in the direction of like I need to, like, life is so hard and can be so ugly and it can be so full of suffering, but like there is a lesson at the bottom of this, and there is like a seed of wisdom and the integrity within that truth. Like I need to capture it and I need to hold it in my heart and I need to move forward, because I also had one son at that time. Now I have two. Um, and I was like, I had no other choice. Like I can't just lie down on the ground and cry all day. Like I have
Yes.
something to live for now more than myself. So it's yeah, it's you, we're all faced with challenges, and it's really that's where our strength comes from if we choose to find it.
Yeah, wow, man, that was beautiful. I'm gonna have to clip that for for one of the promotions. Mark the
Okay.
time. So, so good. Yeah, it made me think of when we did our space together, when you interviewed me. You just said it a lot more poetic and beautiful, but the idea that in suffering, there's always a gift, right? And
Mhm.
our job is to find it, and most people don't open the gift, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They give up the gift for resentment, for feeling sorry for themselves, for feeling like a victim, right?
Yeah.
And that's the booby prize. That's that's not the gift. The gift is the lesson that's inside of it. The fact
Yeah.
that I'm still here. I have another chance. I have another day to try to make things right and to do my best. And
Yeah.
that's, what more can you ask for than that? It made me think, have you read or heard of The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Have you read it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, great book. And like I remember reading that book a year or two into the journey of my shift that I was talking about, and thinking it's funny in two cases. I've never shared this before. One, when I started meditating and started, reading The Power of Now and a lot of the like being present in the moment type books, I remember thinking, man, someday it would be nice to be in the moment, like most of the time, like 51% of the time, like be in the moment. And
Yeah.
and like it felt so far off, like this insane dream, but like, man, that would be really cool. And I can say, like, today I've meditated over 1,000 days straight, right?
Wow.
It's a huge part of my life. And I can basically at any point like take a moment and just be here and like
Mm,
empty mind. Or if I am thinking, it's like very intentional thinking. It's not
yeah.
just mind racing. It's like I'm
Yeah.
thinking about something, I can stop it. I can be in the silence and in the space in between. And it was just this demonstration of my life, like this impossible dream that like became tangible in reality. And
Wow.
same thing with The Obstacle is the Way. I remember reading that book and going, man, how cool would it be that like no matter how bad a situation was, how chaotic, how painful, I could always go, the obstacle is the way. Like in the
Mm,
moment, not the next day, not an
yeah.
hour after everything's resolved. Like in the moment, go, this sucks, on paper, but it's a beautiful gift and an opportunity to like do hard things. Like Gog is talking about. This is a hard thing. This is a gift. And like I've found, in the last couple of years, that's been my reality. I remember looking down the barrel of the gun, that whole situation. I remember that finishing. I remember uh, like blood dripping down my face and like looking around, seeing the memento mori coin, and like still going like it was in there. I was like, the obstacle's the way, man. Like you're alive, you're here. Like that's a very extreme example. I should have
No,
started
but
with the less extreme
no,
examples, but yeah,
no,
and
like if you can pull on that in that moment, you've reached it. Like you,
yeah, exactly. So like this impossible dream I had, like, and then other stuff like, I went to start up my car one night after a yoga class at like 10 at night, and I was like 40 miles from home because I had worked out there, and the car wouldn't start. And I'm like 10 minutes into the car not starting. I was like, damn, man, this is like I got to be at work in like 6 hours. I'm like sweaty from the yoga class. I got nobody to call, and I was like, the obstacle is the way. Like this is going like there's gonna be a good lesson in this somewhere,
that's amazing.
and like I'm getting a gift from this. And then like just every day, like going through breakups, like really hard, heart-wrenching stuff. Like
Yeah.
that's a little more because like there's more emotions and stuff involved in that. And like to be able to go, no, the obstacle's the way on this one too.
Yeah.
Like you're learning lessons, like even the idea of I haven't talked about this before either. Like heartbreak is a gift because so many people, whether it's friendship, family, losing somebody, or
Yeah.
breakups, whatever it is, because so many people never even get to feel the heartbreak. So we think of it as like it's this negative emotion, it's something we want to avoid, but it is better than just nothing at all. It's better than
Oh,
apathy,
yeah.
right?
Totally.
And the whole idea of it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all, like it really is in every sense of the case, not just in romantic relationships, but
Yeah.
in family and friendships and all that. Like it sucks to lose somebody, it sucks to lose a job, it sucks to lose a position, in your community or whatever. But like the heartache is a gift too, because it's teaching you something, and there's gems in there that lessons that you can extract if you're just present enough and open to it.
Totally. Yeah. That confirms, yeah, like the journey I've been on with understanding the brain and the mechanisms at play. I mean, like it's almost like you start pulling on one thread and it all unravels.
Mm.
Um, and on the topic of heartbreak, like something that I realized understanding like childhood attachment and like, how our parents are either attuned to us or not, or like anywhere in between. And if we feel secure in their love, like that has a huge role in that plays out in every relationship that we have from that moment forward. So it's funny because my first real love, it took me like 7 years to get over it.
Yeah.
Like so long. Like, I wish like I had known what I know now, because
Hmm.
it's I fell in love with a guy who was in a different continent, in a different hemisphere. And it was like messy, and like I thought that the depth of my heartbreak meant something, that we were like star-crossed lovers, whatever. And then
Mm.
I realized, like in this study in the last few years of understand like going down the path of psychology and all this stuff, that like I was being activated by a childhood wound, and that wound
Mm.
was my dad flying away every other week, like this abandonment wound. And like loving someone from afar felt familiar to me. And
Oh my God,
loving
that's so good.
loving someone at the distance was what I knew, and
Yes.
that felt normal. So
Mm.
I obviously chose someone who I couldn't be around, I couldn't be with 24/7. And like that's just how it plays. It's just so interesting, like how the things that happen in your childhood, how they like cycle back to you if you are not aware of your habits and your patterns and your subconscious programming. And so I'm so glad that I've stumbled upon this stuff, so
Yeah, yeah,
I can stop those things, because I mean, most of the population is operating in that state of complete unawareness.
yeah.
And like now that I'm a mother, I'm like, the buck needs to stop with me, because like
Mm.
I don't want
Pass that
my,
along.
yeah, like I don't want any of my trauma, intergenerational trauma or whatever they call it, like my wounds and my inadequacies and my shortcomings, like I don't want to pass them on to them. And I can already see, like, children are the best mirrors ever. Like they reflect back to you what you need to work on. And so it's
Yes.
been such a humbling experience, because I'm like, I'm so thankful for the awareness now, because I can see like immediately, like I'm like, oh my God, that thing you're doing that's me. Like you're mirroring me, or you're picking up on something within me, and I need to stop that. I need to like check myself. So this whole thing is like, I'm just so blessed to be in this moment right now with you, sitting here talking about this. And it's like the culmination of a few years of study and research and just unpacking my life. And I'm sure like it's just the beginning. Like a few years
Yeah.
is nothing, but I'm so happy to, you know, for the longest time, I was very resentful, very upset, and like rageful about my dad passing the way he did. It's a story for another day, but there was some iatrogenic injury, like the doctor's big mess ups and like neglect and all that stuff. Um, and like for the longest time, I couldn't see the meaning behind it, or like I couldn't see that there was a silver lining.
Mm.
And as painful it is for me to say it now, his death really made me come alive.
Mm.
And
Yeah, I see that.
I hate that. Like I hate that
Hmm.
it took something so devastating
Yeah.
for me to be here, but that's life.
Yeah. No, it really is. I mean, and that it's very beautiful. And I think so many people can relate. I think the majority of people can relate. And the worse than being able to relate to a tragedy, like being what it took to come alive, to like take control of your life and all that, is the opposite, that the tragedy actually made you resentful, that it
Mm,
actually made you nihilistic, and that you turned around the other
yeah,
way, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
and yeah, there's so much to what you said. The whole thing about the 7-year relationship and the attachment, and how, how you like studying this stuff is like a cheat code.
Yeah.
Like you said, like there's so many threads, all these threads tied together. And that's something I wanted to mention earlier when you were talking about the Fearless Rising brand, that it's neuroscience, it's attachment theory, it's like Carl Jung and shadow. And then you mentioned it's a holistic take on fear. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I think if you want to encapsulate it for now, well, we'll write it down. Like in one thing, it's a holistic take, which no one else is quite doing. A lot of people are approaching fear from one of those three right? And
Yeah.
yeah, you're sort of wrapping it all up in one, and it's like putting on, the glasses and seeing the Matrix in a way, right? You're like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah.
everything goes back to fear. Like, holy shit. And
Yeah.
I just, you explaining how you were able to reframe what that breakup meant, that it was actually about your childhood attachments. Like, that's so beautiful. And that's not taught in our culture. What's taught in
No.
our culture in Hollywood is we're meant to be. And the fact that it
Yeah.
hurts is just even more of a sign that it's meant to be. And it's
Yeah.
like, in the practical world, that leads to like horrible marriages and relationships.
Yeah.
Like in the worst cases, abuse and like murder and like
Oh
terrible
yeah.
shit, right?
Yeah.
Like practically 100%. So like it's so easy to go the Hollywood passionate route just in life in general. And it's so much harder to like do the introspection and do the work to go like, oh, there's so many layers to
Yeah.
to me and to the way that I'm acting in relationships, particularly romantic relationships. Like I think the saying something like, you aren't dating me, you're dating me plus all of my past relationships, like all my, and really like my parents,
Yes. Oh
my
yeah.
attachment, what, of that. Like, so you're never like really meeting the person. You're meeting like this mini layered, lot
Yeah.
of baggage and all that. And what it takes to have a healthy relationship isn't like, well, I'm going to just love you harder and figure it out. It's like, no, we have to individually do the work, right,
Right.
to understand ourselves and all
Yes.
that. And I just think that's so cool. Like the fact that you found those glasses to see the matrix, to see the code
Yeah.
behind human nature and all that. And like you
Yeah.
said, it's just the beginning. There's so much more to study
Yes.
and work on personally, and
Yeah.
to research and share with the world.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's and what you said about like you're dating not just me, but like my ancestors basically, or my entire,
Yes, even
you know,
better. Yes.
whatever wrapped up in one body. That's the other question that has been rattling around in my head since I started this, because when I like this obsession with understanding fear, like what I learned was that we only have two innate fears when we're born, like the fears that are hard baked into us. It's the
Mm,
fear of falling. Like you can witness newborns and like very small infant children being near an edge, like a ledge or a cliff, whatever, simulated
yeah.
cliff, and they are, aware of it and scared of it. And also the acoustic reflex, which is like loud sounds, like children will, like infants will react, have that
Mhm,
reflex.
mhm.
And so it makes sense biologically speaking, like we need to be on guard for like falling off a cliff, and like if there's a loud sound in the jungle where our ears turn up. And then also like there's like the spiders and the
Snakes.
creepy crawl, yeah, those types of
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
But and so that leaves everything else as a learned fear. Every
Mm,
Literally every fear that we have that you can think of, fear of rejection and judgment, and fear of being a beginner, and fear of using your voice, and fear of confrontation, like it's all learned. And
yeah,
we all pick up these. And so what I started asking myself was like, who am I at the bottom of this totem pole?
yeah,
Like layer after layer after layer. If I take this one off, and if I take this one off, and it's a coping mechanism here and a defense mechanism here, and like start to strip away that, I'm like, I don't even know who I am.
yeah.
So it's also like a quest of me on trying to understand, like, who is Sarah at the bottom of this? Like, do
At
I
the
even have
core.
any idea of my authentic nature? And I think another reason why I'm writing about it is because I think we're all worthy of understanding who we are at the core. And
Yeah,
my way into that is understanding the mind and fear. And I think there's many ways into this. Like I'm sure your study of, meditation and stoicism and all these things, like they all lead us to the same place,
yeah,
essentially. And I didn't think that I would end up here. What I realized was my study of understanding fear in the brain has led me towards like, the mental performance aspect. And then that really, it translates to like the psychology of success, like what it means to be a successful human being, like how to show up in the world, like it's
yep,
everything like revolves around the same. So I think it's funny because like on X, like we're all talking about being better human, like most of us being better humans, and how we can show up in the world and manifest our authentic selves. And like we're all like chipping away and getting closer and closer to this, like the core of the sun there, and it's
yeah.
all approaching it from different angles, and it's just beautiful. Like and we all have our different ways into that. So it's all exciting. It's really, really a cool journey we're all on.
Yeah, it's worthy work, right? It's a worthy way of spending our time here in this life.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I resonate so much with what you're saying about stripping away, like, so, identity is a big thing for me. I actually, I don't think you were on the space yesterday. I went kind of wax poetic for like 5 minutes. Nick Verge and
I did hear
just
that.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
about
yeah.
stripping stuff down, and I got a
That's
podcast. I can't announce it yet, but I got a podcast with one of them afterwards. I DM them. It was cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very exciting
okay.
day for me.
Wait.
Um,
So is Justin?
it was, yeah. Okay,
I
but
had a feeling.
hopefully I record it before this comes out. He's so cool, man. I'm really excited to talk to him. He's like
Oh
super
my God.
spiritual and on
You
it.
guys are
Yeah,
so on the same page.
yeah. I'm very very much looking forward to it. But yeah, so just exactly what you were saying. I've done a similar process of like stripping down who I am, right? My identity, right? And I like the frame that you took it through because you're saying so much of what I take to be me, to be Sarah, to be who I am, is actually fear and defense mechanisms and way of keeping myself safe and like ways of, and like, oh, I thought this is a personality trait. It's just based around fear. Like, okay.
Yeah,
And then the second step is one thing to be aware of it. The second step is, well, what would I be if I was free of that? Or at least if I could turn down the volume on that, right? What
right.
would I be free to do? How could I express myself? How could I show up as a mom? How could I show up as a friend?
Yeah,
What could I do with my life? And yeah, I just love anyone that that understands that code of like, let me strip down what's not useful for me in my personality, in my life. Like what fear and what's more holding us back than fear, right? So like
yeah,
finding your fears, finding your defense mechanism, stripping that stuff away, knowing it's going to come back. It's not some magical, like you wave a magic wand. It takes work and all that, but
yeah,
like doing the exercise of asking yourself, what would I be without these fears? And then what would I be if, failure wasn't an option? What would I want to
yeah,
be? Right? What is my dream life? And like, okay, I got my dream life. Like for me, wildly successful writer and podcaster, right? On with Joe
yeah,
Rogan, best-selling book, right? Okay, now what fears are going to keep me from that? Okay, how can I work on those? Like working that stuff out and doing the introspection, through
yeah.
journaling, through work and all that. Like what better things do we have to do with this life than that, right? Because
Oh,
the
yeah,
alternative is sleepwalking through life,
yeah.
is being a slave to your fears and staying in your comfort zone and just life's too short to do that. So
I'm on the same page. You're speaking my language.
I
And
thought so. Okay.
I really admire the way you show up in that space. Like, I mean, we mostly interact on X and like on the spaces and in the DMs, but like I can see when you the way you carry yourself in conversations and how you approach these types of discussions and like how you jump in, to share your insights with some of these bigger accounts. Like I'm intimidated, but like, they're just people. Like they're humans like us.
I'm intimidated too. I'm
Yeah,
like,
well,
oh yeah.
I I get a lot of inspiration from the way you do that and how you build connections and it's all done authentically. Like there's no ulterior motive with you. Like I can tell you're a real one, and I think a lot of people can learn from how you carry yourself with that type of integrity. So
Thank you. It's very, very sweet. That's I was talking with Jazz yesterday, our mutual colleague. Her podcast is coming out tomorrow. Um, it'll have been out by the time ours is out
yeah,
here. And she called me. It was going to be like a 5-minute conversation, and it ended up going an hour. And part of one of the things she mentioned that I echoed is like, she's like, I don't really say anything unless I'm like really compelled to. Like, it's going to be painful for me not to say it. And I'm
yes,
like,
yeah,
hard agree. Like, I'm the same way. Like, I don't talk to talk. I don't talk to hear my own voice. I I hate trying to say something about something I either don't really care about or I don't have a lot of knowledge about. Like
yeah.
that's my worst fear. So like if I'm jumping in to say something, it's because I fucking got something to say and like I think it's valuable. You know what I mean?
Well, so then you can understand my absolute terror the other day when I had to host a space.
I know.
and sorry, Bradley, if you're watching this, this is no,
We love you, Bradley.
love you, Bradley, but Bradley didn't show up for our, he was supposed to co-host.
And it was on a topic that's like your least favorite topic to talk
Like,
about, right? So
no,
networking.
I'm like a true blue introvert. Like I have nothing to say about networking and being social, especially
Yeah,
online. I will never cold DM someone. I'm just way too awkward. Anyway,
yeah.
so Brett, we were talking about this just organically on a phone call, and he's like, we should do a spaces on that because he's like a wizard. Like he went to like he spent a whole year going to Eventbrite meetups just to practice, just like to be social and like anyway, he had a lot to say on it, and then by some cosmic joke, there was a mix up with the scheduling, and I had to hold the container for a talk about networking without really knowing what the hell I was talking about. So I turned it into a roundtable, and luckily people were eager to jump in and add. But like you said, I don't speak unless I have something to say.
Yeah.
So it was painful to have to carry that.
Yeah, well,
But
you did a great job. Yeah, you got through it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, you managed. But yeah, no, that's a perfect example, right? Like that, and I don't think I unmuted and said anything in it because I don't have much to share when it comes to networking either.
yeah,
But I'm like, I'm there with you, Sarah. We're gonna
I
get
know.
through this together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just the solidarity was nice. Yeah.
Yeah, right on. Okay, so we are totally flowing now. I think we're like almost over an hour. So this has been really good. I'm gonna wrap up with my two closing questions here. We really been talking about this one sort of the whole way through, but we'll just see what comes up for you in the moment.
Yep.
Thinking of the Stoics and living the good life. What does the good life mean for you?
Such a good question. The good life to me, I'm on the path of it right now. I don't know if it's a destination, but it's a journey that I'm on, and it has to do with being in alignment. Um, and that's a term that I had never thrown around probably in the last 30 years of my life, but in the last 2 or 3, it's become super important to me because I've been no stranger to self-betrayal,
Mm,
and not that I was lacking of integrity, but just if I saw something was wrong, like I would, suppress my feelings, or I would, ignore my intuition, or just shortchange myself, not speak up for myself, or not share my ideas, let other people kind of walk over me, that type of thing. And it was so painful, but I didn't know any other way to live. And it took a toll. Like every time I did that, it was like another chip away at my self-esteem
mm,
year after year. And like I have so much work to do to build that up, but like I'm slowly doing that now. So being in alignment, like in body and spirit and mind, um, doing the things that I say I'm going to do,
yes.
keep holding myself accountable, being disciplined in every aspect of my life. I'm showing up in ways that I've never shown up for myself before. And this whole, last 3 years, this journey I've been on, that's what it's kind of come down to. It's like living the good life means, you know, putting myself first again. It means loving myself. It means showing up in self-acceptance. And if I do that, if I fill my own cup, I'm flying. I'm like the best influence and best, model for my children, because I don't want them to carry the same, self-doubt and burden and fear that I carried my whole life. So it
Yeah.
means a lot to me to be on this path and to be bettering myself. And that's what I like to pass on to them.
That's beautiful. To try to summarize, which I couldn't, living the good life is done one moment at a time, right? And being in alignment with your soul, with the deepest, truest part of yourself. And then speaking about your kids, two quotes came to mind. The first one is, I never get his name right, Yaber Mate, the
Yep,
psychologist
yep,
guy. I'm sure you've
Sabermetre.
read him. Gabor Mate, he's very much in line with your work. He
Yeah.
says, the best gift that you can give your children is your own happiness. I
Mm,
really love. It's not like a perfect quote. You can poke holes in it, but it's something that you don't hear a lot. right? It's
Yeah.
always about sacrificing for your kids and that.
Yeah.
And he's like, actually, what you can give them is you can demonstrate what happiness and like self-acceptance is, right?
Right.
And you can model that for them. And I
Yeah.
really love that. I heard that a lot in your answer. And then I think of Ram Dass too, one of my favorite guys, spiritual dude. He says, the best way to help other people is to work on yourself and find your truth, right? And that
Yeah.
is a way again of filling your cup, right? Instead of pulling from an empty cup and trying to sacrifice and
Right.
give to others, you can fill up your cup and it can overflow. And that
Yeah.
that joy and that service is coming from a place of abundance, which is really the only sustainable, strategy for long term.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
absolutely loved your answer. And we're going to close. We did the Stoic side of things. We're going to close with a question on the Buddhist side of things, which I'm very interested in because you still even teased me ahead of time and didn't really get into it too deep. So the question is this: what do you think is happening? What is reality? What is at the core and at the base of this moment of infinity, the universe, consciousness? What's going on?
The hard-hitting ones. My answer is going to fall flat because I don't know. I don't, this is just, I don't
Don't
know.
say that. I have faith in you. Give it a
I haven't
shot.
spent enough time thinking about this, but I mean, if the last few years have taught me anything, it's that there's a lot more to life and to these bodies than the eye can see. Um, we are not just meat suits walking around. There is magic going on upstairs. This
Mm,
hunk of tofu like substance, the 3 pounds of tofu upstairs that you can hold in your hand, like you can't, you know, it you can't even imagine what's going on. Um, I think they said there's like more neurons or something, like billions and billions, like like is on par with the amount of stars in this
I've
galaxy.
heard the same thing. I think there's actually more neurons in the average human brain than in there's stars in the galaxy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's absolute, and like, you know, the fact that my thoughts can be translated to words and they're being projected towards you. It starts with like a neuron firing and electricity crossing over like a synapse to another one and making its way down to another org. Like it's just electricity, and I mean it's I can't even put to words how unbelievable it is that we are
Yeah.
actually having this conversation right now. And I'm not doing it justice by speaking in this way. I just, the more, I know scientists have said this, but like the deeper you go into science, it's like the more you realize that there's something divine going on and that there is a design to this experience that we're living. And it's why like the atheists who are the deep core hardcore scientists, like they they find religion at the bottom of their
Yeah.
studies. And
Yeah.
there's so much that can't be explained. So I don't know if that's a good answer, but I know that like it's a there's a lot more going on than I could even imagine or explain or visualize or project to you. That it's just incredible, and that's my answer, and it's a bad one, but
No. Okay, Sarah. It's a great answer for two reasons. Okay. One, you're wrestling with the ineffable mystery of any of this, right? You said
yeah,
like how does this electrical signal, inside the brain lead to a thought, lead to the spoken word, lead
yeah,
to consciousness in this moment, us being aware of each other and all that. And but get behind that. What caused the little electrical signal to start moving in the first place? We don't know. We
yeah.
can't know. You can't logically. It's a mystery, right?
Mhm.
And something you said, we're not just meat suits. There's magic going on up here. I think that's a beautiful answer because it is like no matter how atheistic, materialistic you are, everything is matter and atoms and
Yeah,
and um, if you dive deep enough in there, you're gonna find magic. Like
Yeah.
not like a sort of immature childish magic, but like this is, if you really, and meditation helps with this a lot when you meditate a lot. This moment, Dakota touched on this in our podcast. You and I, you're in Canada, I'm in California. There's like
Yeah.
no lag. We can hear each other. We're talking to each other. This is fucking magic. And
Yeah.
even if you were here with me, it's still magic. These meat suits are connecting and like having emotional, feelings because of this, and we're communicating things and we understand things on like so many dimensions and level.
Yeah.
Like this shit is magic. And there's my timer. Okay, we're hours done.
That was a
So
great little staccato dramatic point here.
it was right, a little echo. So your answer is beautiful. I after you talking for an hour about facing your fears and finding your voice, I wasn't gonna let you end with you saying that was a bad answer. It was a beautiful answer.
Okay.
And that's why I was saying the other reason that it was such a good answer was I watch you so earnestly trying to crack the code of what
Yeah.
nobody can crack,
Yeah.
the mystery of existence. Like
I know, it's so hard for myself.
like all of humanity, all of culture and history has tried to crack the code. Nobody can. Few people are pretty poetic and cool about it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, that was really cool. So if anybody's just listening, go back and watch the video. Watch Sarah's face when she's really trying to
Oh,
crack the mystery of existence.
and I love how the progression of my window. I thought I was getting good light in here, but now I'm in the dark, so I'm
Yeah, it
sorry.
was actually good. I know it's kind of cool. It went along with the vibe of the podcast as it
Got
progressively got
darker? Did
darker.
we get
Yeah,
darker? Or we got
yeah,
deeper?
yeah. Yes, we
Deeper.
were getting deeper. It's good. We're going into the cave. We're
Yeah.
going into Campbell's cave to face the
Yeah. Yeah.
dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, Sarah, that was so much fun.
I had so much fun. This
I,
went by
I
so fast.
it went by so fast. I'm gonna call it. This is one of my favorite podcasts I've done. I'm
Oh,
over
me
40
too.
something. That I felt the magic throughout it. You were so awesome.
Uh,
So
you put my nerves at ease, and I just felt like it was a conversation. So, and like I feel like our conversations are always like this. So it just felt like real and not, you know, it just flowed. It was beautiful. Thank you so
right
much.
on, right
You're
on.
a wonderful host.
Thank you. That's a very high compliment. I appreciate that a lot. Let's finish with this. Where can people find you? Plug all your stuff, websites, everything you got, X, and so they can keep up with you and your mission.
Yeah, people can find me on X uh, at at fearless_rising. Is that what it is? At
Yes,
fearless_rising. I'm also on Instagram with the same handle. I have a newsletter. You can go to my bio and check it out. I also have a 70-page ebook called The Courage Blueprint that I'm just giving it away for free at this point. Like if people are having any kind of struggles or with their anxiety or fear, like it's basically, the last 8 months of my writing distilled down and into one document. So I'm happy to share that with anyone. And yeah, my DMs are open.
Yeah, hey, that's a lot of really high value that she's giving away for free, guys. So I don't know how much longer you'll be giving away for free, but go follow her stuff, get her ebook, and yeah, soak up some of that wisdom and the courage that goes along with Sarah's writing and content. This was
Yeah.
really awesome. I had so much fun with you, and I hope we can do it again sometime.
Me too. Me too.
Right on.
Thanks so
Peace.
much, Nick.
Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this conversation, please hit the like button. If you want to watch more podcasts like this in the future, subscribe and hit the notification to be notified when they come up. If you want to keep up with me, I am on Twitter now every day at write with a W already. Link to that will be in the description. If you want to check out my writing, I publish a newsletter every Friday through Substack. Link to that will also be in the description. I love you guys, and let's keep doing this together. Peace.